Thank you very much for joining in. And also on the call, we have the Group Managing Director of the TLFest Group. Thank you very much, sir, for joining this call. Thank you to everyone who made it here on time. And as well, we have our guest speaker for today. He's already on the call as well, Mr. Adewumi Babayemi. He's here on the call. And just like you, I can't wait to get all the insight that he has to share with us today. So the professional mentoring series is targeted at early career and mid-career professionals who are trying to navigate and make the most of their career journey. You know, we have questions, we have sometimes uncertainties and all of that. So this professional mentoring series is focused on helping you to do better, to make better decisions and have a fulfilling career journey. And that's why we have the professional mentoring series. The last episode, we talked about the polished professional. And here we focused on the things that you should do aside your technical skills that may have brought you into the room, the things that can keep you in the room and move you to the next level of your career. Those simple, supposed soft skills, you know, courtesy, how you handle your emails, how you communicate, how you talk to people. It was a very, very insightful session. And this series, this episode, I can't wait to learn all that we can concerning, you know, navigating career pitfalls. So going through your journey, there's so many things that you'd face. You know, from the day you graduated from the university to your first job and those expectations that you had about your job, you know, and you applied for this supposed dream job and you find out that, oh, there's probably a mismatch or you're not upskilling enough to take advantage of opportunities within your current organization or outside your organization. You're not putting your best foot forward. These are some of the, you know, pitfalls, and looking forward to more things that Mr. Dewumi would share. So on this webinar and all our webinars, we observe the Chatham House rules. It means that you can use any of the lessons or informations that you have here, because this is supposed to be a platform to engage, ask questions, share your experiences from your place of work. You can do that by speaking, just using any of the reaction tabs, and then we call on you to share your experience, or you can use the chat box to do that. And so the idea is to keep everyone's identity, just whatever happens here stays here in terms of who said it, but the content you can share, the insights you can share. So that's what the Chatham House is about. Ensure you use your name on Zoom. Thank you to everyone who currently saved their, have their full names written: William Onoja, Chikobani, thank you very, very much. Please, let's mute our microphone to reduce background noise. So please ensure that your microphone stays muted, and if you need to speak or share a comment or anything you need to share, please use the reaction tab to raise your hand. And when you're called, you ask your question, you make your comments or contributions, and then don't forget to also use the reaction tab to put your hands down. You can also type in the chat box if you have any questions. I would be taking note of everything and sharing, and then your comments as well, you can share as well. So at this point, I would like to invite our consulting analyst, Mr. David Omata. So at this point, introduce the speaker, and then we'll hit the ground running on the topic, navigating career pitfalls.
Thank you very much, Loretta. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar series today. Loretta has already given the introduction on what we are going to discuss today and what we expecting from our speaker, Mr. Dewumi, navigating career pitfalls, and like how do we go through these phases and some of the challenges we may experience in the course of achieving our dreams. And it's our pleasure to have Mr. Dewumi to speak to us today. Mr. Dewumi is a generalist economist, and he's a fellow with the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, and he works at the UK Cabinet House. He has over 11 years of experience in public policy analysis, program management, and operations. He is highly skilled, and I'm very, very certain that we're going to get the best from him today. Without wasting time, please join me to welcome Mr. Adewunmi Babayemi. The floor is open, sir. So.
Thank you very much, David. And also, you don't need to call me sir. We're just colleagues in the NESG. So thank you very much, and thanks Loretta as well for the initial introduction. So, like David said, my name is Adewunmi Babayemi. I'm a Yoruba man, but I reside in the United Kingdom. So I've been living in the UK for 20 years. So essentially went to the to university, well, from secondary school to A-levels to university in the United Kingdom. So I'm pretty much ingrained in the UK system. Having said that, you know, I went to secondary school in Nigeria as well, and I did my primary school in Nigeria before joining into the Western world. So it's a great pleasure to be here today to kind of share my experience with you guys, and also to kind of answer any questions that you may have in terms of career progression, in terms of developing the kind of career that you want and getting to your end goal in terms of your career. Like David said, I've got over 11 years of experience, not just in policy, economics, and programs. I've also got experience working as a consultant with Deloitte, and also working in banking. In fact, I started my career in banking at Citigroup, and then before moving on to Nomura. But I'll come back to kind of taking you guys through my career journey and how I got to where I am today, and my plans in terms of how to get to my destination. So I think I've been given 3 objectives in terms of, you know, the key things to talk about. So, and I want to make this session as interactive as possible. I know we've just got about 11 people on the call, and hopefully more people will join. So I suggest you guys should feel free to kind of interject and ask me any questions in between. This is not a presentation. This is just, I see it more as a informal discussion between colleagues, as opposed to me just speaking at everyone. So one of the first 3 objectives I've been given by David is to talk about the common pitfalls in career journeys and how to overcome them. And it's very important to kind of appreciate that everyone, we will all go through different journeys, even though we've all gone through a very specific educational system. You know, in Nigeria, for instance, I think you have 664. So you spend 6 years in primary school, 6 years in secondary school, and possibly 4 years in university. And in the UK as well, you have 654. You spend 6 years in primary school and 5 years in secondary school and 4 years in university, depending on what course you go to you end up doing in university. Subsequent to that's very specific laid down kind of process from primary school to secondary school to university. We then all go in different directions after university, no matter what course of degree you've gone through, whether medicine, whether economics, whether English, sociology, you name it, or veterinary medicine. We will all most highly likely end up doing different things. And that's the beauty of the world that we live in, because the world is very diverse, the world is very competitive, and you want to come out of university, or at least globally competitive, ambitious, humble, and you know, aspire to great things in life. So rather than me just kind of going into details of, oh, these are the 5 key things that you must do to avoid making career mistakes, I'll take you through my career journey and then kind of give you some key pointers from that journey up until now. So, I went to university in the UK, and I was very lucky very earlier on to somebody is waiting in the waiting room. So I've just accepted him. So I was very lucky earlier on in my career. Well, not even in my career, as a secondary school student, to be given the opportunity to be mentored by somebody in the financial services industry. And I took the opportunity knowing that I wanted to work in the financial services industry just like everybody else. And the reason for that largely was because of the money, the lifestyle. And as a young kid, I wanted to experience that. But that doesn't mean that was my life ambition. My life ambition as a kid was one day to become the president of Nigeria. I always say this, even my sisters and brothers still say that till now. But obviously, I know that I'm far away from achieving that lifetime ambition or aspiration. So I had the opportunity to be mentored by, in fact, a global head of Citigroup at the time, global head of Citigroup Technology Department. And as you can imagine, that is a very, very senior person. And up until today, is still my mentor. And this mentorship relationship started back in 2004, and we are in 2002. So that's 18 years ago. And this fellow is actually a retired banker, as we know it, or as you would like to think, or call people in banking, whether you're working in operations or technology, you're a banker. But he was a banker indeed, because he spent some time setting up the Citigroup unit in Nigeria, and he was my mentor from 2004 up until now. And I was privileged to have been selected in London as one of the people from ethnic minority, high-rising students in school then, and it didn't just mentor me when I was trying to get into university. It kind of paved the way for me in terms of getting opportunities in banking. So my very first job in banking was as a result of my mentor. I told him I was interested in working in investment banking, and I did something called a spring internship. So that was like a 2-week internship in March, April of 2005, I believe. So I spent 2 weeks in Citigroup, and that sort of exposed me to what banking really is, how much money you can make in banking. You can wear nice suits, nice shoes, and all sorts of things like that. Ride in nice cars and all sorts of things. Get to travel everywhere if I wanted to. But as I went on to university, my interest began to change back to my initial kind of aspiration, which was public service, public policy, making the life of other people better. That's the core of my interest. And this is what I always say to people: when you are looking to get into a career, you need to go back to the very first principle. What is your core interest? What are your core values? And what is it that is driving you? And always think to yourself, this is a big, massive world. What impact can you make? And as I came out of A levels in 2007, I think, we were just coming to the back end of the Iraq invasion, which started in 2003, March of 2003. And I used to have a debate with my dad, in the living room. And, that debate sort of culminated into my passion for public service, seeing how people of Iraq had suffered at the time, and having also been to Nigeria during that period, and the kind of experience that I had in Nigeria at a very young age, and my previous experiences in Nigeria also kind of impacted my values, my passion for wanting to serve, in public service. Anyway, so that passion was reignited when I went to university. And I began to make choices and get advice from my mentor on how to pursue a career in public service. And it was very clear to me that I wasn't going to be making money if I were to go into public service, at least not in the Western world. And I knew very much, my passion wasn't to make money. And, I sort of cleared that up in my head. I'm not interested in making money. I'm interested in serving people. I'm interested in changing the world that I live in. And I think that's one of the very first things you need to understand, and one of the very first things you need to decide when you begin to think about, which career path am I going to take? What is in it for me? What is in it for the world? What can I give to the world? And I think, and when you begin to think that way, you find that you find yourself in a career that is fulfilling and is comfortable for you. But anyway, so that's the process I went through. Before going into public service, I decided to try banking one more time just to convince myself that banking wasn't for me. So I spent a year again in Citigroup before I finished university. And at the peak of it, in 2009, 2010, I was sitting in the same room with the CEO of Citigroup, global CEO. And if you're aware of Citigroup, you will know that Citigroup is even bigger than some of the national economies in Africa, for instance. At least I know it's bigger than Nigeria when it comes to GDP, the amount of assets they have. And that was by the virtue of my mentor. And I was sitting with somebody called Bill Mills, who he was the global investment banking director of Citigroup at the time. So I had all the opportunities to become a banker and be paid millions of pounds. But I spent 1 year doing that, meeting with people, sitting in the room with really top senior bankers in Citigroup, because I had a mentor that had influence and it was paving the way for me. And at every single point in time, I was always following instructions given to me by my mentor in terms of, I would tell him, this is what I want to do. And he would tell me, this is where you should go. And this is the people I can introduce you to. And this is why it's very key to find mentors that can open the way for you in terms of your careers, in terms of your development, in terms of, even your mental health well-being nowadays is very critical. So after that year at Deloitte, at Citigroup, I decided, look, I'm not even interested in banking. I'm not moved by all these kind of lifestyles, all these kind of money that they're giving. And so I decided to go and do my master's degree. So I saved up all of the money that I made from Citigroup, went on to do my master's degree, paid £20,000 in cash for my master's degree, excluding my kind of accommodation and feeding and all sorts of things like that. Because I was passionate about public service. So it's something that you're passionate about, you have to be ready to spend. You have to be ready to spend to acquire the knowledge. And I know in some cases it's very difficult to find the funding for education. But nowadays you have a pool of opportunities and a pool of kind of funding that you can tap into. By the time I had to do it myself, even though I was in a developed country, so I had to pay in cash, pay for my tuition fees for a master's degree. So I went in to do my master's degree. I came out of that. I again fell into the trap of going into banking, and this is the issue. Before you begin to find yourself in a place or in a career, you need to kind of sit down and think to yourself, what is it that I'm interested in doing? What are my core values? Speak to your mentor, speak to people that are in the same industry that you want to get into, and get them to advise you, even get to shadow them, in whatever it is that they're doing that is of interest to you. Spend a week or a couple of days seeing what they're doing. And I'm sure a lot of people, almost all of the times, are willing to help, even if just for you to shadow them and see what they're doing. And at least I'm very much willing to get someone to shadow me in my current role. But anyway, I did internship again in Nomura after my master's degree, and during the same period, I decided to apply for a job in public service. and I got my first break, which was working for the Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK, HM Treasury, and I was working on policy, economic policies, and market regulations and things like that in 2013. And you know, one of the things I did to get that was because I kept on networking. I didn't just start because I had access to my mentor that can get me in a room with, you know, CEOs of banks. You know, really, I wasn't really interested in banking. I could easily have stayed in banking and be earning £500,000 a year, you know, up until today. I had that access. So it's not really about access for me. It's all about where does my passion lie? You know, where do I want to go from here? And in fact, I was introducing friends of mine to my mentor that are interested in banking. Most of them are in banking now today. And, you know, I just pass on the opportunity and the ladder to other people because I had the access to the opportunity and I wasn't utilizing the opportunity when it comes to banking because I wanted to get into something else. So blessing other people in the process as well is also a very good thing to do. But, you know, I just stuck to my values of, you know, wanting to do good in the society. And possibly that was what also helped as well, because somebody then introduced me to someone that could help me to get into public service, and then got my very first break in the Chancellor's office in the United Kingdom. So I spent a year there. I was on the program, and I just wasn't satisfied because I was on the program and the organization was managing my career. And one of the things that people tend to do is because their career has been managed by the organization, you don't grow because somebody else is managing your career. So you have to ensure that you actually manage your career. You know, what do you want to do with your life after the first 3 years of your graduate program or your management program or your leadership program? So I know leadership program are now for people with MBAs or PhD or something like that. So what do you want to do after the first 3 years, after the first 5 years? You need to take hold of your own career, plan your career, set clear goals, you know, and know what it is that you want to influence or shape or change. And you know, I began to kind of think in that line. I began to speak with my mentor about how do I get into economic growth and infrastructure, knowing fully well that my mentor was into that field. You know, I first of all asked him, you know, how do I get into it? Is there somebody that he knows that I can speak with? And are there events out there that I can attend? And it just sort of helped me out. You know, it helped me to find people that could help me. You know, your mentor would not always be able to kind of solve your issues, but they can possibly get you people that will help you to solve your challenges, your life issues, your interests. So I was able to then begin to speak with people in the industry that I'm really keen in, and I began to kind of attend events as well, and I started doing sessions with people in that industry in public sector, going to events in public sector, and then you know eventually I managed to get a job in infrastructure and trade. Funny enough, and trade and infrastructure is a very interesting space. And you know, up until now, I'm still in that space. I'm in the space of, you know, economic growth, public policy, and infrastructure delivery. And it's an interesting space for me because I know my long-term goal of coming back to Africa, of coming back to Nigeria or Africa at large, is how do we create kind of productivity by making investments in infrastructure that would help to kind of re-engineer growth in our continent or in Nigeria. And this is why I've always pursued opportunity in infrastructure, not just infrastructure financing, infrastructure policy, but also infrastructure delivery. How do you actually deliver the infrastructure? So the reason why I've gone round about this rather than giving you 5 steps to take to avoid pitfalls in your career is because I wanted to kind of give you a real life example of how I have done it. And hopefully you've been able to pick out some of the key things that I've mentioned. So having a mentor that can open the doors for you is really important. And also knowing what your core values are, that is also very key. What is it that is of utmost interest to you in life? What changes do you want to see in life? What changes do you want to influence? What interests you the most? And also not get it comfortable, because somebody can open the door for you to get into a career that you're not really interested in. I wasn't interested in banking. I had all of the opportunities to get into banking, but I just decided not to go. You may well be interested in banking, but you have all of the opportunities to get into public policy. But how can you leverage the current opportunity that you have to get into public policy to get you into banking? So begin to kind of think that way. Just because your mentor can open that gate of public policy for you, and doesn't mean you have to follow that path, is the point I'm trying to make. And also very critical is you have to own your own career. Do not expect your organization, your mentor to manage your career for you. Your career is your career, and it's like your career is like your life in itself. Nobody is helping to manage your life. Once you get to the age of 18, at least in the Western world, you have to manage your own life. You have to follow a trajectory. You have to know good from bad, right from wrong, and you have to build on that. And in order for you to be able to go forward in life, and you have to always attempt to build bridges with people. So my dad always says something: just because somebody offends you doesn't mean you shouldn't talk to them the next day. You never know when this person will be useful to you. There's a way you say it in Yoruba, but I don't want to say it for the sake of the audience. I'm not sure how many Yoruba people we have here, but essentially the point I'm trying to make is, if somebody offends you today, whether in your field of career, you can get annoyed, but don't get annoyed to the point that you decide not to speak to them ever again, because you do not know when this person would be useful to you again. So that's not burning bridges. Somebody that you think is not useful to you today would be useful to you tomorrow in connecting you to somebody. So not burning bridges is very, very important. Always be, I'm not saying you should be friends with everybody, but the point I'm trying to make is that do not burn bridges with people that have helped you in the past, or people that can potentially help you. In fact, maybe people you've helped in the past and they've done something to you now, that you didn't quite like, but still trying to maintain that professional kind of relationship with them. And you never know where you would get to use their help in the future. Sorry about that. I think I would probably move on to the next point, because for the sake of time, in terms of how to switch jobs and careers without tampering with growth. So if you check my LinkedIn, one of the things that you see is that I have worked in various places. I have not just been in public services. I've also been in private sector. So the reason I've done that is because in the UK public service, they value people with experience in the private sector. Somebody that can leverage that private sector experience on public sector work. And one of the very first things I had to accept in doing that was being able to move laterally. When you are moving from a completely different sector to another sector, one of the things that you will need to be able to prove to recruiters is that you can do that job in the other sector that you're moving into, and that your previous skill sets are relevant. And I think one of the mistakes not to make is ensuring that you are getting into a role that would be relevant to your future goal or goals. So I moved from UK civil service into consulting. I started with Jacobs Engineering. They do a lot of infrastructure and economic advisory for the UK government. And it was in the course of my kind of dealings inside government that I managed to build a relationship with a director in Jacobs Engineering. And so they were working for me. They were delivering to budgets that I was responsible for in government. And as a result of sort of building a relationship with them, you know, I managed to find a way to go and work on the other side and actually see how they do things and deliver work for government. And subsequently, I moved on to Deloitte, where I spent about 2 years in the government and infrastructure team. I was a manager in that team, and you know, it was to do with government infrastructure and financial advisory to government. And that is still very much relevant to economic growth, public policy programs, infrastructure delivery, and just keeping in alignment my interest. I've not gone from economics and infrastructure to medicine, for instance. No, you still maintain the same career outlook, so that by the time you then get to the point that you want to encapsulate your skill set to get you to a greater height in your career, you can draw on various experience that are relevant. So that's what I did, and that's you know, I just went into private sector. First of all, accepting that, you know, I may have to come in at a lower grade than I was in public sector, which I did, and eventually within 6 months or a year, you get promoted, and they say that actually you're good enough. So being able to accept that sometimes when you are changing industry or where you are going to another industry, you would need to go in at a lower grade. But once you get in, you can always prove yourself, you know, and then they would promote you, and you know, and in the process as well, you know, don't burn bridges. Keep in touch with people in your old sector, and try to keep up to date in terms of skills development and kind of activities that is going on in that sector. And don't make decisions based on salary. I think I've already spoken about this earlier on in my first objective, which is just because you have an opportunity to be earning £1 million or £1 million every month doesn't mean that's the right place for you. It might be the right place for you given life circumstances for the first 2 years. By all means, you should stay. But if it's not going to add any value to your job, then you know, you need to move on. Let me give you a very clear example. A former petroleum minister of Nigeria, one of my friends was actually working for him, and he's got a PhD in chemical engineering, but my friend was doing absolutely nothing to do with chemical engineering. He was just carrying his bags and traveling and staying in hotels all over the world, and that wasn't adding any value to his life. I mean, if that's what you want to do with your life, fine. I'm sure a lot of people will be happy for you to be carrying your bags and sleeping in hotel rooms and put on your LinkedIn and Instagram that I'm in Dubai today, I'm in Abu Dhabi tomorrow, but that's not giving you any value. So now this petroleum minister is been out of ministerial portfolio for the last 3-4 years. I think he was the very first petroleum minister under Buhari. So you guys will know what I'm talking about. And you know, and after 2 or 3 years, is it 4 years that he spent doing that job? He's no longer minister of petroleum, and my friend is now looking for proper kind of engineering offshore work, and it's been very, very difficult for him, and he's been having to retrain as, you know, project management in oil and gas industry. So this is what I'm saying. It's not about how lucrative the opportunity is for you, but it's about the value that you can get out of it. So, I mean, it's fine for him to move out of the oil and gas industry and go into politics and working directly for the Minister of Petroleum. Anybody will think that's a very good job, as a breakthrough for you in life. But what value is that adding to you? Because you will leave that role in the next 4 years or 5 years or at most 8 years. So always think about the value you can get out of your role, and not just salary, not just the extravagance of that office that you're getting into. Because as young people, sometimes that can get in the way of us thinking of what career path should I be taking. Another thing I'll probably want to mention is, you can always use kind of switching jobs from one industry to another as a way of getting promoted, as a way of moving up in your career ladder. So, and I have done that a couple of times. So my last role in Jacobs Engineering, moved to Deloitte. I was a senior consultant in Deloitte, in Jacobs, and then I moved into Deloitte as a manager. And now I'm back in civil service. So I'm just a step away from being a senior civil servant. And that's a big deal for a Black person in the United Kingdom. That's a real big deal. But I don't go on and on about it, but it's a big deal. You don't get many Black people in that kind of position. For you, I'm just one step away. And that's because of the kind of moves that I've done in the past, and ensuring that all my career switches that I've made is still very much in line with my career goals of going back to public service and serving people in the position of policy development, economic growth, and infrastructure. So always bear that in mind, that you can use switching career from one sector to another as a way to get yourself promoted. And in the process, again, don't stop networking in public service, for instance, or in I don't know, whichever field that you were previously. Don't stop networking with people in that industry just because you're no longer there. You need to continue networking with them. You need to continue to keep up to date in terms of development and opportunities that are available. And you just need to be curious every time. Every single day, you need to be curious, ask questions, and meet new people, and find mentors in different sectors. Have a mentor in oil and gas if that's where you're interested in the future. Have a mentor in pharmaceutical if that's where you're interested in. Have a mentor in entertainment if that's where you're interested in, and do things in those industry that you think you would like to get into in the future, and because that doing work experience in those industry would give you some experience that would allow you to pursue your future career, your future goal as, I don't know, as let's say a minister of tourism in Nigeria. So if you've gone through entertainment, pharmaceutical, and you can all add it all together. And for me, no kind of career development or training is pointless, or education is pointless. So I have a friend in banking, a VP in Barclays. In fact, he called me the other day that Barclays was spending money to send a lot of them to Manchester University to do a master's degree in technology. And my friend is into risk management. And I said to him, look, my advice to you is take it. Don't say you don't want it. They're spending on thousands of pounds for you to do this master's degree in IT. You may feel it's not required today. You may feel that you don't need it today, but as you go up in your career ladder, it will become much more relevant, because then that will set you apart to everyone else as a president or MD or whatever you want to call yourself. So I'm glad he's taking the opportunity, and he'll be starting his MSc in September this year. So that's the advice I would almost always give to people. Don't ignore, if you're given the opportunity to do a training course, or that somebody's paying for it, or your organization is paying for it. Don't say, oh, that's not relevant to me, I'm not doing it. Do it, because you do not know when that will come in handy. Maybe it will come in handy when you're switching careers to another industry. Again, your career is yours, and you need to build it. You need to develop it. You need to spend time doing it, doing a lot of things that will add value to your career. And don't give up networking just because you're now in one industry. You're saying, oh, I don't really need to go out again for networking. You still need to do it. Even if you're a CEO of an organization, you need to get out there. When they talk about stakeholder management, stakeholder engagement, that's what they mean. If you want to become a CEO of a think tank, a CEO of a bank, you need to be able to engage with people outside of your industry, inside of your industry on a daily basis. That's what they mean by stakeholder engagement. And also, I think I'll move on to the third point for the sake of time, because I think I'm going through a lot of points here, and hopefully you guys are picking up some ideas and pointers. I think I really want to move away from giving people top 10 tips, five to 10 or 7 top pitfalls that you should avoid, because I just think those things aren't very good enough. They just, anyone can write up anything. But giving you real life example and sharing that with you, hopefully as a result of that, you can pick up 1 or 2 things. I think in discussing the last point, which is around how do you build professional network to promote smooth career growth, I think I'll share 7 points at this last one that was shared with me by 5 points that was shared with me by my mentor. When you find yourself in a career, so most of the things that you will get you to the top in your career, in your organization, is not by by being friendly with people, but it's by people seeing what you are good at. It's by people seeing the achievement that you've made in that particular job. You need to work hard. Hard work goes without saying. You need to be able to demonstrate that you have the capacity to deliver, and that you are delivering to the bottom line. So whether in public service or in private sector, that you are delivering to bottom line of the organization is very, very key. Very, very key. Because if I own a company and I am paying you 10 million pound naira a year or 12 million naira a year, equivalent to £1 million naira a month, I want to know what you are actually providing for my organization. So, and that would get you exposed to really senior people within the organization. And, and once you're exposed to really senior people within an organization, it will be easy for you to move on, because those senior people would really recommend you to their colleagues in different organizations. They'll put in good words for you, or they may even try as much as possible to not let you go. So I take the opportunity every single time where I'm given the opportunity to be exposed to senior people. So my very first exposure to a Secretary of State, which is equivalent to a Nigeria senior minister, was kind of advising the Secretary of State at the time on kind of, there was something called to do with working hours in the UK, where people that actually work on 0-hour contract. So that was one of the policy that I was working on at the time. And the Secretary of State was coming on Channel 4 TV to give an interview, because it was a big deal at the time in 2013-14 in the UK, and the UK government was trying to kind of resolve that policy issue. So I was in a room with people they call SPADs, special advisors to ministers. I was just a junior policy advisor, and in that room I could have just kept quiet and not say anything and be really scared. But I was brought into that room by my director because I'd been working on that policy, and I probably knew more about that policy than my director. So I took the opportunity to be exposed to the Secretary of State by giving her 1 or 2 lines to say on TV, just 1 or 2 quotation from the analysis that we had done at the time. So taking opportunity to be exposed to really senior people through hard work, through kind of just taking up the opportunity and the chances to do so is really key. And to build that professional network, you just don't get to the top without meeting people that are already at the top and doing things for people that are already at the top. And the last few points I'll make is know yourself, know your capacity. Don't put yourself up for jobs that you think you're not capable of doing, because that would really impact on your professional image. Anything that would damage your professional image, you do not want to do it. Don't go and take up a job just because somebody is offering you that job on a platter of gold. And because if you mess up, believe me, other people will hear about it. If you feel like this presentation I'm giving today, I'm sure a lot of you will go back and say, oh, that guy is actually chatting rubbish, or that guy was actually quite good because he was talking off his head. And, I will recommend him the next time. So that's the same way people will talk about you when you go into a job and you're not good at your job. People will talk about you that you're not good at your job. And if you're equally good, they would recommend you. So know yourself, know what you can do and know what you can't do. The last one would be, you need to balance your work life and personal life is really key. Even when you want to move on to another role and you want to have a very smooth career progression, you need to make sure that your mental health well-being is also protected. Have a stable personal life is very important. I won't stress how important that is. And to have that support network back at home is crucial, because when you leave your office and you go back home, you don't want stress. You want to be able to sleep and wake up fresh every morning to go back into the office and give your best. So, lastly is respect. I'm sure you guys have heard about diversity and inclusion, especially when you are working in the West. When you are kind of building a professional network, you would meet people of different diversity, and you have to be open-minded. You have to be ready to work with them, no matter their background. You shouldn't look down on anyone. You shouldn't look down on somebody because they're more junior, or look too much up on somebody because they're too senior to you. You should always look at people at the same wavelength as yourself, and be ready to kind of communicate with people with decency, humility, and respect. And you should treat people all equally. And I think that's crucial in building a smooth career transition, a smooth career progression as well. And I think, without saying too much, I would probably want to stop here to give people the opportunity to ask questions. I know I've gone about it without much structure, and I think that's probably a lot helpful rather than giving you 10 points, 5 points here and there. And just sharing my experience in a way that I feel you would probably connect with much better than just giving you a list of 5 things or 10 things to do. So I think I'll stop there, David, and I would welcome people to ask questions, and kind of feedback as well will be very useful.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much, Adewumi. Thank you. You've given us enough. Yes. To start with, I want to put a question to you.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. You have switched job and career, let me say, like 3 times now in your career journey. Yes. Okay. What are the specific challenges that you have faced in between this?
Right. So one of the first questions people would ask you as you go up in career ladder, because every time I try to switch a job, would always be kind of moving up in the career ladder, not going for junior roles. They'll always ask you, why are you leaving your previous job? And you need to have, an answer ready for that. And you need to be able to demonstrate, that you are leaving for good reasons. Because look, every organization would say to you, we're going to spend thousands of pounds or millions of nairas to train you, and you then leave us in the next 1 year. It's not good for them. It's not good for business. But you need to be able to justify that you can provide them value within a year or two that is as good as staying there for 5 years. And you have to be sure of yourself that your track records as well is excellent in your old organization. And also, I try to avoid going for jobs in completely different industry that they wouldn't know anyone from my old industry. So if I'm going into consultancy now, I'll probably go back to Deloitte or KPMG or EY. And they can always reach out to people on my LinkedIn and say, actually, do you know this guy called Adewumi? He said he's worked with you guys. how was his performance and stuff like that. And the records will be there. They can check, actually, this guy was excellent, but he just left because he wants to progress. So that's one challenge. They will always challenge you that why are you leaving? Why don't you stay? We're afraid you would leave in the next 18 months. The other one is, quickly, the other challenge that I faced is there is a stigma for people moving more frequently from whether within the same industry or a different industry. But I think that is changing now. I think the world has changed from people staying in one organization for 30 years. But one of the greatest challenges you'll find is the older people, the older generation are still at the top of the corporate organization structure. And they have this mindset that, I've stayed in this career for 30 years, I've worked my way up. Why is this boy not, or this lady not staying in his or her old career for another 30 years? But the world is changing. The technology is making things to work differently. And I think there will come a time where people like me will be right at the top of the corporate organization, either in private sector or public sector. And I wouldn't be asking that kind of question. In fact, that would be a sign of this person can adapt easily into my organization if I've seen that you've worked in 3 different organizations in the last 3 years or 5 years. So, you get people still asking that kind of question anyway. So just make sure you can prove yourself. Don't worry about the stigma because the world is changing and the world will eventually catch up with you. With people that are changing careers every 3 years or every 5 years. And also, finally, make sure you have a clear, valid reason why you're doing that. And when you're doing that, be ready to go in at a lower grade because that's a possibility. And maybe you do that for a year or so. And I think I mentioned that previously. And if you go in at a lower grade, just put your head down, remain focused, and do your job in a year or two. And demand for promotion. And if they're not giving it to you, I would say begin to kind of strategize to get to go back into your old career or your old company, and I'm sure you get what you deserve.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much for that response. Let me throw a few questions at you before we open the floor. Now, what about someone that wants to switch career completely? From your explanation, yours has been within the same sector, like similar, not completely switching. What of someone that wants to switch a career completely? Maybe I want to move from food science to tech coding completely. And it's not like I want to do something that is food tech also. No, maybe you understand, switching completely.
Yeah, I do get you.
What is your advice for?
Yeah. So my wife is a medical doctor. She's actually nearly a consultant. And she's finding it very tough here in the UK, and she wants to move away from medicine completely. So one of the very first thing I made her to realize is that you are going to have to go in at a junior level, and you would not earn the same amount of money as you used to as a doctor. And also, you need to be ready to spend money to be retrained. Let's say you want to go from medicine to, like you said, from medicine to teaching. My wife wanted to do, but she doesn't want to teach science. Maybe she wants to teach mathematics, or she wants to be teaching coding. You need to be retrained, and that's going to take a number of years. And I think what you need to think about is, where are you in your current career? What are you doing in your current career? And I think realistically, you need to take into account your age as well. How easy is it for you to be retrained for another 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? You just need to bear all these things in mind, salary wise. Why do you want to do it? How is it going to impact on your life? And how quickly is it going to get you to your destination? And then you need to seek out networking and opportunities that would help you to achieve that. But my advice to people, most people, a lot of times is, don't change career to an industry where you've not built any sort of experience, or that you cannot actually leverage your existing experience in. So for instance, my wife wants to move from being an infectious diseases consultant to a teacher. My advice to her would be, at least go and teach biology, for instance. Go to universities and be teaching medicine. So she's been teaching 1 or 2 lectures in University of Leeds, and at the same time she's working as a doctor. So that way you are leveraging your existing skill sets. Even if you want to move from medicine to IT, I'm sure there are a lot of skill sets that you can still take away with you from medicine or from biomedical science to IT. So always try to move on to different industry where you can leverage your existing skill sets, especially when it's very late in life. Maybe you're 35 or 40, but when you're still in your early 20s, early 30s, I think there's a bit of a leeway to move on to another industry completely. But just be prepared to spend a lot of money to be retrained, and you have to be patient and remain focused.
All right, thank you very much. Let me or let me open the floor rather. To take questions. So if you have questions, you can type in the chat box, and then we'll be able to take your question. And if you want to ask questions, I think the floor is even open.
People can feel free to talk
to
me as well.
Unmute, and then you ask your questions.
Thank you, Adilmi, for that very insightful session you shared with us. Questions haven't come in yet, but we're seeing different comments. Start with the comment from Onyu. Says there's this notion that only people who own banks are called bankers, others are bank workers. We have another comment from Onye as well, saying, I think that's part of what separates technocrats. I think that would be the point where you said in the UK, it's important that, or it's appreciated more if you have more experience in the private sector, and they can see how you can connect that to the public sector. So she says, I think that's part of what separates technocrats from politicians. A good thing is a blend of both though, I guess. And Samuel and also Owen also pointing out the issue of age. Samuel says age factor is an issue in Nigeria. People have to forge their age because they are overaged for the position. So if you do not want to forge your age, what would you advise people who are older and they want to move into another space? How can they do that without having to, forge their age? And once I get your comments on that, I also have some questions as well.
Yeah, so to respond directly to Samuel, I think look internationally, don't just look locally. Look, within the African continent, look to the West, look to multilateral organizations. You will find that most multilateral organizations nowadays are not just recruiting. Please talk more on the age issue coupled with educational system. Look, I think the age issue in Nigeria is a cultural thing rather than a professional challenge. And I think also because we have a system where the number of people coming out of the university and the number of jobs available are not in equilibrium. And this is why, people are always saying the older people don't want to leave their jobs and the younger people are unable to get into new jobs. So I think the age issue will still remain until a lot of things change in our country. But what I would say to you as a young person, don't waste your time looking for jobs alone in Nigeria. Try to find other opportunities outside of Nigeria. Not just in the UK, but you find opportunities in Canada, US, Scandinavian countries. They do want people. And when you are looking for career opportunities, multilateral organizations, you'll be surprised that you can get into some of these places. It's just knowing the right things to do and speaking to right mentors and putting together the right information. So unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about the age factor in Nigeria now. I've just said what the issue is, which is the equilibrium between people that are retiring and people that are coming out of the educational system to get into jobs. So there's no balance, and it's just structural failure in that respect. And there's nothing anyone can do at the moment about that. And it's quite sad, unfortunately, I must admit, because it's young people that would come up with ideas to innovate, to grow the country. But obviously, the people that are currently piloting the affairs of the nation do not see it that way. Hopefully, we'll get fresh pair of brains coming in 2023, and things will begin to change. That's all I can say on that, Samuel.
Okay, thank you very much for your response. I hope that Samuel found that helpful. I have a question, which is a direct message, and I'll just read it out. It says, in the light of the recent inflation, there is the fear of losing a job that is well paid to gain experience in another company where you would get to do the work, but because of the nature of the organization, think tech startups, you are not sure if they would withstand the inflation. How then do you navigate this?
So you're not sure whether the small organization that you want to move into would weather the storm.
To get experience would
weather the storm, the economic storm. So what I would say to you is, whether during the interview process or on request, or just request a one-to-one chat with the management or the manager, the recruiting manager of that role, try to understand the strategy of the organization. And I think people need to be bold, especially in Nigeria. We're trained not to ask questions. I've been trained in the last 22 years to be bold and ask really difficult questions. And when you begin to do that, I think it will begin to become the norm. And whoever is asking that question, my advice to you would be, have a coffee chat with the management, the recruiter, of what their 3 to 5 years plan is, their strategy, what their strategy to grow, the pipeline of work, what's the pipeline of work they have, what are the opportunities, and try to understand the going concern of this organization for yourself. Don't let them influence your thinking, and then make your decision based on that, because at the end of the day, you still need to work and earn salary to look after yourself and your family. But if you feel from the information they've provided as a result of that kind of coffee chat, and they can back it up, then I'll say definitely feel free to move on. Don't worry about the salary now. Just worry about, just think about the end goal. And I'm sure the economy in the next 2-3 years would change for better. And hopefully you can find something in a more stable organization if this organization were to go down.
Thank you very much for that response. The term think long term. So I think really to be able to navigate some of this career pitfalls and all of that, it's very important that you set out having a goal and what do you want to achieve on your career journey. So if you're having any issues, you can always look to that goal. This is the end game, right? And how can I maximize the current opportunities that this job or this opportunity would provide? And I want to, while you were speaking, you mentioned something around having I don't know, I probably didn't hear you correctly. I'm open to you correcting me, but I thought you said something about maybe you're working in a place where they try to manage your career, do not allow such. What does it mean? How can an organization choose to manage your career, and how can you actively prevent that?
Okay. So thank you for that question. Yeah, many organizations do want to manage your career because they feel like they're spending so much money on you, they're investing on you, and they don't want you to move on. And especially when you have bosses that are not very, very amenable to you moving on as well, it can be another challenge. So, and I think the reason why most organizations do not want you to move on is purely because they're spending money on you and they need you, and because they know that going out to recruit another person is going to cost them a lot of money, and the new person may actually be asking for more money in salary as well, in remuneration. So that's some of the reasons why they wouldn't want you to move on, and they will want to manage your career. So this is why, it's not everything that you want to do regarding your moves that you tell to your organization. You need to look inward. You need to look outward as much as you look inward into the organization. So if you feel like the organization still has a lot of things or a lot of offer in terms of development for you, by all means, you should stay, But if you feel like your development and your aspiration lies elsewhere, because the organization is not going at the pace that you want to go, again, by all means, you should start strategizing, and do not disclose it to your line manager if you feel this person is not amenable to things like that. And you need to really judge the situation before you begin to discuss with your line manager or your management or whoever it is that your HR. I have never for once discussed any of my moves to HR. I've always just told them at the time that I'm leaving, rather than just telling them and taking them through the entire process. And take time to do training outside of your organization as well. So do training development that are not provided by your organization, and do ask your organization, your current organization, to sponsor some trainings that you feel would help you to get into another role. You don't necessarily have to tell them why you want that training done, but I'm sure if you can convince them that it is relevant to your current role, they may well fund you. I think just be don't be too conspicuous about your approach to leaving an organization, because that's not good for anyone. That would not look good professionally, because you're still working within the organization. So just be circumspect about it, and be clever to find your way out if need be.
Okay, thank you very, very much. I like that you mentioned take time to do trainings outside your organization, and try as much as possible to not be, when I say don't talk too much about what you want to do. And the thing is that there's a thin line. I guess this method might work if you're in a very large organization, but probably if you're in a smaller one, and you probably, because the idea is, okay, if you want to resign or you want to do something, you should at least give your line manager at least a month's heads up and all of that. So the advice you just gave doesn't tamper on that notice where you're maybe actively speaking with them concerning the switch you want to make.
I think there's a question from someone called Adefemi Lawal. In terms of transitioning to another career in another country, what are the odds of getting a job regarding the age bracket for workforce, especially when you are late 20s? Femi, I would say don't think about your age when you're advising applying for jobs outside of Nigeria. Nobody's going to ask you how old are you, which year you were born, and also things like that. I was in banking, earning good money at the age of 21, 22, and nobody was saying anything to me about my age. I was, don't worry about age. It's only in Nigeria or in some African countries that age matters. Age does not matter anywhere else. Believe me.
Okay, and thank you for responding to Adefemi's questions. Please, if you have questions, do not hesitate to drop them in the chat box. You can just use any of the reaction tabs, and I'll unmute you, and then you can ask any questions that you have. Another thing that I noticed in your story or your journey as you shared was, highlighting mentors. And would I say, luckily for you, you had a mentor you had mentors who were influential or who had some level of influence. So I would say that you had mentors who were playing the role of sponsors, because it's not all mentors are sponsors, and not all sponsors are mentors. So I would say you were lucky enough to have a 2-in-1 person, or a 2-in-1 mentor who could help you. So did you find your mentor, or did your mentor find you?
Well, so my mentor was found for me, actually. So there was a program in London at the time for high-rising ethnic minority students in secondary school. So I happened to be one of them, even though I didn't think I was high-riser then. And since then, I that mentorship program was only just for 2 years, and at the end of from year 10 to year 11, I think. But I decided to maintain that relationship up until now. You know, we're still very much in contact. So
how did you maintain it?
Sorry.
How did you maintain it? Because you mentioned something about building people bridges, building people,
Yeah.
people is very important. So how did you maintain that relationship with your
That's a very good
mentor?
question. So it's as simple as human relations, you know, constant communication, kind of going out for coffee, you know, asking them, can you meet for coffee? Or, you know, people would always be very interested and happy to meet you for half an hour, or, you know, an hour, or for the weekend, if they can, in the evening. And I'm not saying sucking up to people, because I don't think that is good and I don't like it, and I wouldn't advise anyone to be doing such things. But, you know, just, you know, make time available for your mentor, and try to work around their timing as well, because this person was a very busy person, always flying. I was always ready to meet him, even if it was 9 p.m., 10 p.m. And I know Nigeria is not safe, but at the moment, but, you know, I'm sure you can always find time in your very busy schedule to meet a very senior person in an organization. And I think, to your point, Loretta, on having an influential mentor, I mean, even if you don't have an influential mentor, I'm sure there are a lot of things you can learn from people that are already in the professional field that you want to work in, and maybe they're not necessarily the CEO or the MD, but they can still give you a lot of advice. So I would say, do not despise somebody that want to mentor you because they're not, you know, higher up in the organization. Even if it's your peer, you can have your peers as your mentor as well, or you can mentor each other as well, or even somebody that is a year ahead of you or 2 years ahead of you. You can take them as mentors. You know, that is very, very important. It doesn't have to be the CEO mentoring you. It doesn't have to be, because I see some Nigerian youths now, they've been mentored by the owner of, is it UBA? I can't quite remember his name now. Which is laudable, which is good, but we all aren't that lucky to get somebody of that status to mentor us. So find somebody that can mentor you, no matter what their level is, and I'm sure you will be able to benefit just as much as being mentored by, you know, the CEO of a bank.
All right, thank you very much. Kindly unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adewumi, for your presentation. It's more like an experience sharing, and it's something that, you know, we were able to relate very well because of, you know, the way you progressed in your career. And I must say, it's really an impressive career progression that is like a motivation for we young ones to, you know, emulate and see how we can improve ourselves too, you know, in our career. And also thank you, Loretta, for and the team at First Leadership for always organizing this learning series. I must say, each time I attend any of the session, it's a new thing, a new knowledge is acquired, a new knowledge is gained. And I really want to say kudos to the team, and I look forward to attending more, you know, of this learning series just to build my as a career person. So my question, sir, is your career progression is really impressive, and I began to wonder, you time, you know, in building our career, you know, and one of the key things, always try to see how we can improve ourselves, building our skills, even in industry that we do not have interest in, because it might be useful to manage your time, you know, that's the roles that you've been to manage your time, to give out time to build your skills, you know. In me, I, for one, it's a challenge for me, because most times, even when I not finishing it because of high deliverables, high tasks for me to achieve at the end of the day. And, you know, I tend to now take courses, you know, and not finishing them. So how are you able to manage this, in your career progression?
Thanks, Uche. I think being very realistic about your capacity is very crucial, and I think I mentioned this earlier on. Do not put yourself forward for something that you don't think you can deliver on, because that would have an impact on your professional image. Because you know, as you are moving up in your career, you are building this professional image that is what accountants would call intangible assets, or goodwill. I'm sure there are accountants in the house. You know about goodwill and intangible assets. So you want to build your professional image in such a way that everywhere you go, people would know that this person is capable, can deliver, or has delivered, or she has delivered in the past. And all the development courses that you're putting yourself forward for, make sure they are very, very relevant, and you're not just doing them for the sake of doing. And don't sign up for everything every time that you see it online or on edX. You have to look at the merit of each certificate or courses that are being offered online, and see how relevant it is to you, to your next move. And I would normally advise people to stay in a career, in a job for at least between a year and 18 months. And, you know, after a year, you can begin to kind of strategize, unless you really have any kind of challenges in that job. Then maybe you can begin to think after 6 months. But generally, if it's to move from one career to the other, between a year and 18 months is a good time for you to kind of think about what you want to do next, think about where you're going to, and then begin the application process, at least in the Western world. And I know it might be a bit different for you guys in Nigeria, because it's really hard to even find one job, let alone move to another job. So my advice would be, you know, look outward, don't look into Nigeria alone, look outside of Nigeria, and be ready and be bold to move somewhere else, and take the risk as well. I don't know whether I've answered your question, because I didn't quite grasp everything because of the network.
Okay, yeah, I think I've gotten one or two from what you said, but basically I wanted to know how you were able to manage your time in terms of building your skills in between the careers that you've actually, you know, gone through. So that time
Right,
that you
right. Okay. So let me quickly answer that part, which is my master's degree was a very, very intense course, and wasn't just in economics, it was in economics and finance. And I think I did French as well at the time. So that really set me going, it kept me going, and it was a very expensive adventure. And so this is why I always say to people, do a degree or a course in master's degree level that would set you up for a while, you know, or do one or two courses that will set you up for a while. Maybe they may cost you quite a bit. I know there are some edX courses now that are going for £2,000, £3,000. Even when you go on this Spanish business school, they have a number of, I can send the email to David later and he can share it. They have a number of development courses that you can do. But in selecting a course to do, make sure it is relevant, make sure it's going to help you in your next move. And if it's something that you can even get your current organization to pay for, and because they're paying for it, they would give you some time off to do it. And make sure you have time to do it. And sacrificing time is also very important. Even now that we have a baby, I still come down in the middle of the night to do a bit of work, and you just have to sacrifice time. You need to put in the time, the effort. You cannot achieve anything without setting the time apart to study, to read, and give it the necessary attention that it needs. Hopefully that answers your question.
Very well. Thank you very much, Mr. Adewumi. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
So setting out the time, and your current capacity and how relevant it is to your next move is crucial. And that's how I've done it in the past. There's no magic bullet. You know, even if you speak to people right at the top of the game, you know, Madam Okonjo-Iweala, I'm sure she'll tell you exactly the same thing. She spends a lot of time. So Dr. Okonjo-Iweala came to the UK last year to give a speech on climate, mobilizing climate change and finance and stuff. And I had the opportunity to talk to her on the side because it wasn't my remit at the time. She was campaigning, well, not campaigning, she was chairing the session on mobilizing climate finance for infrastructure. And my colleague in Foreign Office were obviously dealing with that, and I had the privilege to see her. So, you know, you can see that this woman hadn't slept since yesterday. So clearly she spent a lot of time reading, writing, preparing herself for the task in the morning. So you have to spend a lot of time, sacrifice, and you have to prioritize as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aderumi.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Aderumi, and everyone that has made it possible to join this call today. And we are glad to receive that feedback that our webinar series has been inspiring and motivating. Thank you so much for the feedback. I think that was from, was it Lawal or Ushe? Thank you so much. And Mr. Aderumi, yeah, it's from Ushe. Thank you so much. When you were talking about trying to make the sacrifice and to do a whole lot of things, to combine things together, I think I can testify to this, because even on the NESG platform where we are together as fellows, I see the level of energy that you put in, the contributions and in terms of the activities. And this is what I also want to advise everybody. It's all about making the sacrifice to build up the ladder and grow on this career journey. We have 5 minutes left. I think we've been able to maximize our time so well, and I believe that we've all gained 1 or 2 things today. In case you may need to speak with Mr. Aderumi or for subsequent follow-up, if you don't mind, Mr. Aderumi, maybe if you may drop your email or contact so that for those that may want to reach out to you, somebody mentored you. So today now, maybe you may start mentoring someone also.
Well, I'm already mentoring a number of people, but I am very happy to receive questions and provide guidance to people. So please feel free to share my email, David, and we'll take it from there.
All right then. So we'll share the email to those that are registered. We'll share the email. We'll send it maybe to your email or the line you used to register. So once again, thank you so much, everyone. We believe we've had a wonderful session. We wish you the best of the day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David, and all the best to you guys. Cheers.
Thank
bye.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Aderumi. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. We'd like to keep
You too.
the sessions for 90 minutes, and thankfully we're